Welcome to Golf Industry Guru and the Gig Podcast, where we interview the best and brightest golf and hospitality leaders on the planet. On today's episode, you will learn some proven real-world solutions that'll help you and your team solve some of your biggest golf business challenges. So stick around for some tips, tools, and training to get you, your people, and your business powered on. Here's your host, James Cronk.
Well, hello, Golf Industry Guru members, and welcome to another podcast on Gig. And I am thrilled to have, just an individual that I have admired, watched, learned from, even been active with over the years on stage even, and in a kitchen, if you can believe it or not. I'm not sure if we both had hair, but it was literally 35 years ago that I first met Chef Chuck Currie, when he was the founder and the concept leader of Earl's Restaurants, and who fundamentally really was a key in creating a menu that literally almost still exists today. And Earl's is one of the most successful chains here in Canada and has explored down in North America. But not to mention, I mean, Chuck has put his talents to work with so many successful and recognizable industry leaders in Canada and beyond, places like the White Spot, Cactus Club, Joey's, even 7-Eleven, for goodness sakes. He's also an instructor, an educator, an author, and he's the only restaurateur to receive the British Columbia Provincial Apprenticeship Award and the BC Food Safe Award. And if that wasn't enough, Chuck is one of those amazing people that has a double life, because he is also a world-class clarinetist and a saxophonist. And even many years ago, Chuck was unfortunately in the orchestra pit while I was pretending to be a musical actor on stage. But that is for another podcast, and by the way, a whole other industry membership, I think. So, so Chuck, it is my pleasure to have you, because mostly what Chuck's specialty is about making money for his clients. And I'm just honored to have just a very esteemed gentleman in the food service business, the culinary business. And Chuck, welcome to the Golf Industry Group podcast. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me, Jamie. It's just great to be here, and it's great to see you, although no one else is seeing us. And no. This is really good, because it's like being in a room with you, and I'm not talking to a phone, I'm talking to you.
Yes, it's good to be able to see each other. We haven't changed a bit, and you can tell how long Chuck and I have known each other, because he calls me Jamie still, which is
sorry. James.
That's totally fine. You and my mom can keep calling me Jamie.
It's just affection. It's just affection, Jamie.
Thank you. And you put on a tie today, and you look fantastic. And behind you, for those listeners that can't see us, behind Chuck is a wall, a library filled with, I have no doubt, probably books and stories about food and also about music. So today, Chuck, I'm going to ask you about the food business. And but if you don't mind, if anyone, I want you to tell people also how to find you, how to track you down, get your website, get your LinkedIn profile, because you've got such a fascinating history, Chuck. But just, if you don't mind, share with our listeners a little bit about your passion for the food business, your passion for you told me when you were a young man, you kind of figured out what you were passionate about. So tell me a bit more about that.
Well, before I was passionate necessarily about music and food, I had a great experience in grade 5. I was from an armed forces family, and we moved a lot, and we were frankly poor, as armed forces still are in Canada and probably most countries. And our recreation was camping. That's all we could afford. And every time Dad got posted, we would camp our way across Canada or down the United States to the new posting. And it can make you a little bit insular. You're in these little towns, and you're the Air Force kid, right? So I was in grade 5, and I was kind of a dreamy loner. I read like mad. I wasn't a musician yet. I wasn't cooking yet. That was soon to come. And my homeroom teacher, Mr. Sutherland, called my mom in after school one day without me knowing about it. And she came in and he said, I noticed that I was known as Charles then, Jamie, that I was tried out for the soccer team and I wasn't really that good. But he kept me on the team because all of a sudden I was more engaged with everything. My marks went up. I was making friends and everything. And he said, like, I can't keep you on the team, Charles, but I want to keep this up and find ways to engage you. And on my way home with Mom in shock, I said, I'm going to be a teacher. That's what I want to be. I want to be a teacher like Mr. Sutherland. Wow. So that's my main drive is teaching. And so I loved music and I loved cooking. My mom was an orphan, so I learned to cook with her out of the Meta Given cookbook, which was worn to bits. I started by licking the icing off of the beater and then making the ice. And then all of a sudden I was cooking with Mom. And she wasn't a very good cook, but she got to be a really good cook. And I was part of that, doing it with her. It was the same age I started playing the clarinet. So in late high school, I decided I was going to be a music teacher, and I went to university for music, but I worked my way through as a cook. And then I realized I didn't like classroom teaching. I liked one-on-one teaching. And I was already training everybody in this kitchen, even though I was full-time because I worked my way through school full-time and cooking nights and weekends. And so I was used to the schedule I'd end up with as a chef, just always cooking, and I liked it. And I realized, oh, yeah, I am a teacher already. So I never stopped the music. I just shifted the business focus. And, since I left Earl's and went into consulting, I just work a couple, 3 days a week because I'm not inexpensive. And also I'm got really, really well known as a musician. So basically, one of my best friends, Chuck, you turned your hobbies into your careers. And I wish everybody could do that. Man, it's a great life.
Well, and it's a good parallel, Chuck, because really a lot of people that get in the golf industry because they love the game of golf. They love to play the game of golf. They find themselves all of a sudden working in the back shop and then working in the golf shop. Then all of a sudden one day become a general manager, or they work on the beverage cart or the restaurant, and then one day they become the food and beverage manager. Then one day they become the general manager. I mean, whatever it might be, it's and
they hardly ever get to golf anymore.
Well, that's the whole thing. That's the big thing. You don't get to play golf anymore. And our business is more complicated than rocket science, right? And that's one of the things that you help, obviously, your clients with, and in the food side of it. And so, Chuck, tell me, if you don't mind, a bit about after your, we could talk, for example, for hours and hours about your real jobs before becoming a consultant with Earl's or with White Spot and all the other kind of roles that you've played in creating menus. But when you've got on your own, what did you find was the need of people that wanted to bring you in or to have you help them? What have you found over your years, I guess, that is the need for people to reach out to someone like yourself to help them with their food and beverage business?
I made a few little notes this morning, and I wasn't going to get into this, but one of the greatest testimonials I ever got was from a guy you might know named Brad Brooks. Mm-hmm. And I worked with him when he was IT with Earl's, and we designed a lot of programs together rather than buying off-the-shelf products. But one of the things he said about me very kindly on my own website, which I've abandoned for LinkedIn now, was you have to know what to ignore.
Yeah.
I view myself as a sharpshooter who also knows the whole business, but I can zero in on the things that will make the biggest difference the fastest. And they're always related to almost editing. People try to do too much. They throw spaghetti at the wall and don't notice the stuff that fell off, and they keep trying to keep throwing it at the wall. You only want to keep the stuff that sticks. So I'll tell you frankly, the last company I'm just about to sign with for a big project that may be a very long project, the president said, of course, we look really hard at our sales mix and analyze it. And I had to stop myself from saying, no, you don't. Everybody thinks they do. And frankly, I think people are terrible at it. I'm talking about companies in the billions of dollars. I mean, I analyzed the sales mix of GFS, which is a $90 billion company, and you could easily reduce their inventory by 25%, easily. Not a single customer would worry about it. And I just, I don't think people look at the important things. The really, really important things in any business are sales per square foot. Some people look like that in restaurant business. More and more they are because of the way square footage and taxes are going up. And they also don't look at sales per menu item per year. I believe I'm the only person who looks at that. So whether it's a single restaurant or a chain of 2,000 restaurants, you average it down to one property, and I'm looking for $80,000 to $90,000 per menu item sales per menu item per year. You know what that number tells you? Low labor, quick turnover, and of course popularity. There's a lot more detailed analysis than that, but I would say analyzing a menu's structure and the structure of the menu is the single easiest way to put money on the bottom line, along with building efficient kitchens. And of course, most of the members of your group is already all built, unless their chain is still building stuff. But I've never met a kitchen that I can't cut by 25 to 50% in square footage, and I've never met a menu or a ingredient SKU list that I can't cut from 15 to 25%. Is always easy. I've cut as much as 75% and never lost a customer and increased sales and profits. People try to do too much, and it makes their life really, really hard.
So let's talk about two of those things, because I think those are fascinating topics, and trying to relate them to the club industry, to a private club that has 10,000 square foot kitchen and a couple hundred seats, if not whatever it might be, that was built to some kind of behemoth, that was created where you got to walk 20 steps to put the dressing on the salad.
They're called chef vanity kitchens, and they also run chef vanity menus.
There you go. Okay, well, let's talk about the kitchen for a minute. So what are some of the things when you talk about efficiency or kitchen size or the dollar per square foot with regards to a kitchen? What are some of the things that an operator can do or would look at or would try to make change? How do you influence that, I guess, is the question.
The basic design for a multi-outlet place like a hotel or a private club or the National Arts Center, which a friend of mine was food and beverage manager there, so that was my first look at an operation like that. The most important thing to do is centralize the prep in one place for all the outlets, but have the cooking to order done where you provide the food. It's more efficient, and you will build a smaller kitchen for your main dining room, a much smaller kitchen. So the food will get out faster and there won't be so many footsteps. Footsteps are our enemy. I don't mind taking a delivery of my prepped products once per day in a small part of the outlet, in one of the smaller outlets, a snack bar or a lounge. But I don't want to be running cooked food all that way. And so what I want is the smallest footprint delivery kitchen, cooking to order kitchen I have for each outlet with all the prep done centrally. And of course, the prep kitchen designed with very few footsteps. That's about as specific as I can get without going into like hours.
Sure. How do you get, if you're going into a client or you're going into a chef, you've come in, you're the consultant, you've come into their restaurant, you can see that they've got 5 bodies instead of 3. They're prepping their food all over the place, whatever it might be, all these things you're talking about. What are some of the ways that you get the team to understand the benefits of that efficiency, or to understand that, maybe they don't need to schedule 6 people for 8 hours a day? You're laughing because I think I might know the answer, but this is the challenge of being a consultant. I always say the benefit of being a consultant is I have to stay. I don't have to stay. Like, once I give bad news and no one likes me, then, hey, it is what it is.
I don't do that. My intent when I go into audit is that I'm going to be part of the team that fixes it.
Right.
And because what am I? A teacher.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't shit on your floor and walk away.
Right.
Now, if you're offended by that, don't hire me.
Yes.
You're gonna get honesty, and quite direct, brutal honesty. But I'm on your side. The most important thing that I do is make sure that somebody audits with me, because they're actually going to stop doing and start watching.
Right.
That's the single biggest failure in restaurant management. I believe it may be the biggest single failure in management of any business, is that they don't audit and they think they have trained. Now there's tools I use to make it to make an extremely strong prescription of how we're going to fix the patient. But the most important one is people learn, no matter how small the venue. Let's say you're in a very small operation and you're a chef who has to cook on the line. Take the easiest station where you can watch what the other guys are doing and schedule some time every month where you actually do nothing and just watch. You'll be amazed what you will find. Mm-hmm. Amazed. I mean, I just audited a major sort of coffee shop restaurant that's one of the biggest in North America. It's like 2,500 outlets. And their waffle machine is 25 feet down the line from where they cook the eggs. So every time they go get a waffle, it's 50 feet. And then the service side of the pass-through, where they keep the very, very well-designed place to keep butter chilled just to the right temperature where you can scoop it, is a 10-foot walk. So every waffle they put out is 120 feet of walking. And you wouldn't believe how common that is.
And so walk me through, Chuck, take that to the next step for me. So walk me through reducing the footsteps. How does that end up? I mean, obviously I can conceptually understand it.
Well, it starts in the prep kitchen, right? Because you'll get people who go to the fridge for every ingredient for a product. Like one of the things I do that people their jaw just hits the floor is I just count the number of trips that prep cooks take in the morning because they don't use a cart.
Right.
Yes. And it averages 100 to 200 trips per morning for a collective of cooks, anywhere from 2 to 5 cooks. Basically, you could lower your prep cost by 25 to 35% just from getting a cart and assisting 2 or 3 trips per morning. Bring your recipes, gather all the ingredients, weigh them in the cooler, bring them out. I mean, it's usually 3 points directly to the bottom line.
Right.
3 points directly to the bottom line is a lot of money in food service.
Yes.
That's the prep kitchen. And then you have to but before you even get to that, where the real money is in menu structure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned that. So let's talk about that.
I mean, I have no problem with cutting costs, but what I really like to do is increase sales. And anytime you're correcting behavior, there's a lot of training. Getting the menu structure right, there's no training involved in that. You need the right menu that pushes the right buttons for your establishment. Now, you can't say what that is without knowing the establishment. But generally speaking, most menus that I see, I end up cutting 25 to 35%. And cutting the ingredient screws by 25 to 35%, which automatically lowers your labor and increases your sales and lowers the number of guys you need on the line. And the way to look at that is to look at the contribution to margin, first of all, of every outlet, if you've got multiple outlets. So contribution to margin is the money you make after food cost. We're not even talking about labor. It's just like, what we should be after is dollars margin, not percentage cost. It's way more important what dollars trickle to the bottom line than what the actual food cost is. So what I do is I would take every outlet and see what percentage of margin does this contribute. So if it's 10% of the contribution to margin of the whole business, should we even be doing this? Should we even have this outlet? Let's say you've got 3 outlets and 2 of them are doing 40 or 40% or 40 to 45%, and one's doing 10%. Is it something that the golfers need? Frequently it is. Okay, then how are we going to increase this and make this contribute more to the margin of the whole business? Within each outlet and the menu of each outlet, you look at the categories and what are those categories contributing to margin? And within that, what is the average percentage of margin in that category? And are there too many items in that category? And I'm telling you, there are. What most people do when they do menu development is they cannibalize other operators and they cannibalize themselves. I know, let's throw in another freaking sauce for chicken wings. Let's make another kind of pasta. Let's make let's offer 4 different eggs Benedicts. Only 1 or 2 of them are selling. Trust me. I'm not saying that every restaurant that does that is running more eggs Benedict than they need to. Just every one I've ever seen.
Yes. Well, you and I talked about this offline.
Your one best version of every product you make. No 15 hamburgers, 3, maybe 1, right?
Right.
Just narrow it down. And when you look at your menu, you'll see, you know what I frequently see? Well, I mean, some examples are really gross. I'll see that 75% of the menu sells less than 3 per day.
Right.
I've seen places where 50% of the menu sells less than 1 per day, and 10% of the menu sells less than 1 per week. I mean, this is rocket science. Isn't really complicated. This is not rocket science. It's certainly not genetic engineering, which is complicated. How many do you sell of each item per day? Any less than 3 per day? Why are you doing this? It can't be fresh. It can't be good. It's not popular. But what I've learned is never trust what anybody says about the menu mix unless it's sitting right in front of you, because nobody looks at it hard and nobody looks at it right.
Well, often in the club business, Chuck, we're faced with, the fact that we've been selling the same shrimp salad sandwich for the last 25 years, and Mrs. Jones orders it every Thursday. And so we can't take the shrimp salad sandwich off the menu because Mrs. Jones is going to lose her mind.
Yep.
And so especially and this gets the conversation about, when we're talking about the private club sector, there's, every article that says we should be making a profit. There's another article that says that it's an amenity, that should break even if you're lucky. And if you lose a little bit of money, don't worry about it because it's, paid for in the dues. I mean, those are crazy concepts in the grand scheme of things. If you're running any kind of business, whether it's the shoe shine or whether it's valet or whether it's car wash or whether it's the dining room, it should be making the bottom line so you can invest back in the club, invest back in the product. So there's obviously some attitudinal changes and there's some philosophies and you work, my goodness, you work with hundreds and thousands probably of chefs in your day. How do you create that kind of environment with your team? How do you create that thought process with the chef that has maybe got their kind of program established and they don't want to go through change is hard, change is difficult. So when you teach and you lead like you're talking about, what are some of the ways you get people to buy into that concept that we've got 18 sauces on the chicken wings, but we're not a local pub, so we got to cut it down to 3 because we're losing our shirts on chicken wings?
It won't be hard. There's only 2 or 3 that are selling. The problem is people do this stuff and they don't look back at it. They're going oh, that didn't work. So there's always stuff to cut that nobody's buying, right? And you don't ever touch anything that will hurt your relationship with the customer. But what you do is you edge them into something else and then get it off the menu. It's like with staff. You never fire staff. You hire fantastic staff, and the people who aren't so good don't feel comfortable anymore and leave. You just have to do a better job on the other stuff on the menu, and the bad stuff goes even lower on the mix.
Right.
Once you get your menu down to a reasonable size, the next step after that is do seasonal stuff so that there's a variety. And don't change it. Like not every feature every week. Run a feature for a quarter, right? Run a seasonal feature. So the labor that you're putting into the training you're putting into that, the prep you're putting into that, there's payoff, and you'd end up throwing away ingredients and finished products.
Yes.
The same thing with what I will do is I'll take it off the menu and still have the ingredients for Mrs. Smith.
Yeah.
Those are the shelf life on Mrs. Smith is usually not very long.
Yes. Especially when you take away the
I've done this with people who are family restaurants who have seniors menus. I'll take it off the menu and keep the ingredients around. You'd be amazed how quick it dies when they just don't
very
see it
interesting.
anymore.
Yeah, that's
we never say no. We just don't offer it anymore, but we'll honor it. And that's the way you can make change without losing customers and with upsetting your guests and your members.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's fantastic. Chef, when you go into kind of a consulting role and you get brought in, first of all, tell me some of the, when someone calls you up and says, Chuck, I need your help. What are some of the things they say they need your help with?
Oh, it varies. It's usually only one thing. It's usually either it's kitchen design or menu. That's the big 2. Yeah. And if they're already operating, if it's not a new concept, I said, well, why don't you just come and have a look around and see how I can help you? So I send them an audit template of what I do. And luckily I've written in great detail about it on my LinkedIn site. I say, look at these 5 or 6 articles. This is what you're going to get, right? And it's a bit of a whirlwind audit. I need 2 days in the establishment and 3 days to work on numbers. And my experience has been so coming up through the ranks and then running big businesses that I think I have the approach of a general and a foot soldier. The foot soldier part of me walks in and I can see, looking in the cooler, here's what we need to change on the menu. But they're not going to believe that. So the general in me has to provide analysis.
Right.
But frankly, I can walk through the place and tell you what I would do just by looking at the age of stuff in the cooler. And by taking a quick look at the sales mix, but I provide a detailed analysis of it that helps us do a better plan and helps sell it to the people who are going to spend the money. To be very frank, although 75 or 80% of my time is spent in the kitchen working with a chef, 80% of my influence is on the GM, because they need to be able to hold the kitchen accountable. And to be very frank, even in the restaurant business where you're focused on food and liquids and service and the kitchen's right there, I would say that most owners, operators, and GMs don't understand the kitchen to the point where they're actually terrified of it. Mm-hmm. I want to get them out of that game. I want them to be able to say, here's what I need to be able to do with my chef to get the best out of him and keep him high in sales, high in profit, high in happiness, and have a happy place back there. And I need to be able to help him with analysis and how to analyze what he's doing himself. There's very little analysis that goes on in food service because we grow up just pitching in and getting promoted for working hard. And then we just keep doing that. And the bigger the business we get, the less we should actually be doing anything, and we should be auditing and training and organizing. And those tend to be a bit of an afterthought. And the bigger the business, it seems like the more of an afterthought it is.
What's interesting about what you said there, and how I relate that to our business, Chuck, is that in the golf business, it's rare. It's rare. It's rare that a general manager of a golf club has come up through food and beverage. It certainly happens. Many GMs or club owners have more knowledge than another one about food and beverage, but rarely had they, spent 7 years in a kitchen or running a bar or something like that, where you truly understand the risks and rewards and the challenges of making a dollar in a kitchen and how easy it can disappear in a behind the bar or wherever it might be. And so a lot of GMs, certainly the conversations that I've had with many, scared is one word, but certainly a lack of expertise. And so what they're trying to understand is, it's like the same thing. I don't know how to cut grass. I have to trust the superintendent that I have by my conversations with him and or her and my feeling that they're doing the right thing. I'm not educated enough to walk in their maintenance building and tell them whether or not the blade is cut properly or whether or not, they got too much bolts on the counter for inventory. Just like I'm a bit better when I walk into a kitchen, though. But GMs face that challenge, is that they don't know enough about, like you said, the auditing and the watch and what to look for and what are the metrics that I'm supposed to use. Because, it's easy to say, hey, by the way, my food cost is 34%. Well, there's lots of ways to make food cost 34% or 28% or whatever way you want it. It's the oldest shell game in the business. So I think
how big's your inventory?
Yeah, exactly.
Or how big are you saying your inventory is? Exactly. I just caught that one on my last audit. Out of 60 restaurant company, there are $500,000 of excess inventory on hand.
Wow.
So, and the problem is actually their biggest stores. There are simple metrics, and that's what I teach is, listen, ignore the activity and look at the metrics, because the activity is confusing.
Right.
If you work with the metrics, the activity will become less confusing. It's confusing because the planning's terrible. So, you plan the right menu, design the right kitchen, and then there's numbers to watch. Tell me more about that. One of the numbers I watch that no one looks at is the percentage of inventory on hand compared to weekly sales.
Is there an industry standard that number should be?
Well, obviously the higher your sales are, the lower your percentage of inventory is going to be, because You're probably ordering a little bit more frequently, and the cost of your frozen goods and your dry goods is a lower percentage, right? Because they come in case packs. So if you have very low sales and you're buying like cases of dry goods and cases of frozen goods, you're going to have a higher percentage. But I would say 20 to 40% is good. One of the easy numbers I pitched at this client that I'm just probably about to sign was just look at 85% of your week's purchases. That's not a bad number to have in inventory if you're getting 2 deliveries a week. If you're getting 3 deliveries a week, 60% of your weekly purchases should be on your weekly inventory. And of course, the problem is people only taking monthly inventories. By the time you take a monthly inventory, that horse has gone out of the barn. We've burned the bar down. The horse is full burrows with mules. You know, I mean, it's too late. You got to be looking at it weekly and have a plan and be on it, or the cooks won't be on it. You got to create a culture of anti-waste and anti-useless stuff kicking around, which sometimes extends to people, not just the food.
Yes.
But there's analytical tools which, once you start using them, just pinpoint it for you. Like one of the things that I learned in Earls was when I traveled, every place I went to that I was there for a day or two, I'd look and I would frequently see one lonely cook from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, just barely keeping ahead of orders from happy hour and trying to get the line stocked up. And then at 5 o'clock, a parade of people walk into the kitchen, get it all stocked up, and then be 60% productive for the next 4 hours. I said, I pointed out, I said, like, and they said, oh, this is really not a very usual or normal day. This never happens, right? And I heard this so many times because I visited so many restaurants. I said, yeah, right. Okay, so give me the last 3 weeks' sales per hour, food sales per hour, and the number of cooks on every one of those hours. And I created a sales per man hour sheet where I just look at every hour. What did we bring in, and what did we sell? So we have sales for the number of bodies on. So then you look at that for the prep kitchen, for the sales for the entire week and for every day. What were my hours of prep for that day and for that week for that amount of sales? Because that's where the most waste is. So it's a separate category. Then we look at the day team, then look at the night team, and then we look at the closes. Now, if you want to go into a little more detail, there's an article on that on my LinkedIn site that's in great detail. They're a tough read. Don't try and read it on your computer. Print it out. Study it. Even better, hire me. Yes. So I can teach you how to use it.
Well, of course. If you want to make your kitchen better and you want to make your menu better and you want to make your club more profitable, you need to reach out to Chuck. And while we're on that topic, Chuck, where can people reach you best? Is it LinkedIn? That's the best way to kind of connect. You can actually just Google Chuck Currie and find out a lot about me. But my LinkedIn site has a detailed list of what I've done, the clients I've had, and 35 articles on food and running restaurants. Those articles are, some of them, I've had presidents of the company print them out and read them 3 times before they call me and say, like, can you just go over this one more time? They're dense, but they're totally doable. But you kind of have to do it once with somebody who knows how to do it, and then you know how to do it yourself. And I just move on, and you're a happier guy because you know how to run your business better. Yes. That's fantastic. Chuck, let's finish off. I want to go back to a comment for me. I tell people everything that I learned about the service business, I learned when I worked for Earl's Restaurants. I really believe that. I was very lucky. I was a busboy when I was 18 and left as an assistant general manager when I was 28 or something. But, people used to say the success, and today, look at the success of that, of all those chains today, right? And I always just say, like, they're not successful because they hire people that look good and smile. It is systems, it is structure, it is process, it's training, it's coaching. I mean, even today I'll go into a client's kitchen and I'll see they haven't portioned out sauces or nothing's portioned. I go, that was 35 years ago that things were portioning. I remember all those Tupperware containers, all those little containers with every single little dressing was portioned, and you were, I know, part of that. What's Chuck in your kind of all the work you've done and all of the different clients you've worked with and worked for in the food and beverage business, the work you're doing now as an educator, et cetera, what do you feel are kind of some of the things that you feel that you contribute the most to your teaching, to the people you work with, to the chefs you work with, to the clients you've had? What would you say is kind of your kind of legacy with some of that work, with all the many successes that you've had?
Helping people grow, and making their life easier, making it easier for them to learn, make it easier for them to succeed. But of course, the other part of that is when you're operating a place is picking great people, picking people who want to do that, where it's part of their ethos. They're out there. And it's actually amazing how people respond if they're given the chance to contribute. If listening and using their ideas, but creating a template for your business where if it doesn't hit these parameters, we can't do it. And then within those parameters, trying to get people to contribute to what we're doing. Do you remember the recipe books we had in Earl's? Do you remember every page had an idea from some cook in some restaurant?
That's right.
By name, right?
Yes.
Recognizing people within a template that gives them success. What higher calling is there than that? Yeah,
that's awesome. That's fantastic. I think it's fascinating, Chuck, that you were asked to leave the team and in that moment decided that you wanted to be a teacher, because obviously you had great respect for that teacher and for that communication and that experience for yourself. And here you are many years later teaching, whether it's musicians, aspiring saxophonists and clarinetists, or whether it's teaching as an educator, or obviously teaching your clients to make their businesses better. But it's
there's nothing better in the life than contributing to somebody's happiness and success, and a teacher gets to do that more than anybody.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Chuck, thank you so much for joining our Golf Industry Guru podcast. I want to do this again because I got 19 other things on my list that I never got to ask you about. And I'm going to go right now, delve into some of those articles and prod my way through them and look forward to finding some nuggets. And I invite all of our readers to do the same, to go visit Chuck on LinkedIn and look at his various websites and his contacts. And I know that Chuck can help you if you've got a business that needs some of the help that we talked about today. But Chuck, thank you so much for your time, and looking great and wonderful to connect again after all these years.
Hey, James, in the not too distant future, we could do this in person over a beer.
100%.
It's coming. The world is coming back to life. And luckily for golf, it was perfectly placed to stay alive.
100% true. 100% true. Thanks so much, Chuck. Look forward to it, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Bye-bye, James.
Thanks for listening to the Gig Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and mostly that you learned a few things that will help you improve your business. Join us next time as we continue to bring you the best and brightest golf and hospitality leaders on the planet. Thanks for listening.